Okay, we're at the top of the hour. Welcome, everyone. My name is Margot Malachowski, and I'm an Education and Outreach Coordinator for the network of the National Library of Medicine, NNLM, in Region 7. So my office is located at UMass Chan Medical School in Worcester, Massachusetts. I'm here with my colleagues from the National Library of Medicine. Rebecca Brown is with the NNLM Training Office, and Amanda Sawyer is with the National Center for Biotechnology Information, or NCBI. So we are happy to welcome you to How PubMed Works. Today's session is focused on medical subject headings, otherwise known as MeSH. Let's look at today's agenda. We will cover 4 topics today. 1, we will first define MeSH and discuss why we use it. Plus, we will look at entry terms. We will look at the hierarchical structure of MeSH and talk about automatic explosion. 3, we will talk about 4 types of MeSH terms and look at examples of each. And 4, we will dissect a MeSH record to help you better understand all the components that are included. I will be doing live demos throughout the class, and you are welcome to follow along on a second screen or second tab if you would like to. So what are MeSH terms and why are they useful? MeSH stands for Medical Subject Headings, and it's the National Library of Medicine's controlled vocabulary that represents concepts in biomedical literature. And that is number 1 on your handout. MeSH is a controlled vocabulary. Because there can be many ways to describe a single concept, MeSH provides a way to connect the possible variant terms to the preferred MeSH heading, which gives uniformity and consistency to indexing and cataloging. Note that in PubMed, MeSH is applied only to citations that are indexed for Medline. Citations indexed for Medline make up the vast majority of PubMed citations. MeSH headings are organized hierarchically into several main branches, and that's where the idea of the MeSH tree comes from, and that is number 2 on your handout. MeSH terms are organized hierarchically. And MeSH terms are revised annually to reflect changes in biomedical literature, and that is number 3 on your handout. MeSH is revised annually. During the MeSH annual update, terms can be added, replaced, or reorganized in the hierarchy. MeSH terms are usually applied within 24 hours of a citation being added to the catalog. Let's take a look at an example of a MeSH term. Here we see a MeSH term, myocardial infarction. The variants, or synonyms for this term, listed on the right side of the slide, are called entry terms. And this is number 4 on your handout. The terms that are synonymous or close in scope to the preferred MeSH term are called entry terms. These are the terms that MeSH vocabulary associates with myocardial infarction. In PubMed, we can run a search using the term heart attack or any of the other terms on this list, and it automatically maps or connects to the preferred MeSH term for this concept, which is myocardial infarction. It is the preferred or official MeSH term that exists on the Medline citation. So this mapping from entry term to preferred term means that searches with any of these terms retrieve relevant results. In fact, sometimes using an entry term can be especially effective because PubMed will search for both the entry term that you used in all fields and the MeSH term it maps to in the MeSH part of the record. And that is what we see here with the eye strain example on the slide. I ran a search on eye strain, and then I located my search details by clicking on Advanced underneath the search box, and I scrolled down to my history and search details. The details show that eye strain mapped to the MeSH term, which is asthenopia. This is because PubMed's automatic mapping recognized eye strain as an entry term. We will be teaching a session on automatic term mapping next week on June 25th, and it's not too late to register. I highly recommend the session if you want to understand how PubMed processes the terms you enter into the search box. Rebecca is putting the link to the registration page in the chat box now. Any biomedical terms that you use in your PubMed search, such as eye strain or heart attack, should map to MeSH terms, which enhances your search and ensures that you retrieve the relevant Medline citations. The search details shows us that PubMed searched for eye strain as well to find other relevant results by keyword. Now, I'd like you to try searching with an entry term in PubMed. Go to pubmed.gov if you can, and Rebecca has put the link to PubMed in the chat, and search for insomnia. Do not use search tags or quotation marks, just the word insomnia. After you run your search in PubMed, click Advanced below the search box and locate your search details to see how the term mapped. And let me know in the chat, which MeSH term did insomnia map to? Right. Insomnia mapped to sleep initiation and maintenance disorders, which is the preferred MeSH heading for this concept. Let me show you how this works in MeSH. Okay. I will start by going to PubMed. Let's go to the MeSH database using the link at the bottom of the PubMed page. Here I am in PubMed, and in any page you're in PubMed, you can scroll down the page until you reach, and I will demonstrate this a couple of times during the webinar, to this grade section, and there is the word MeSH hyperlinked, and if I click on that, it brings me to the MeSH database. So I will search on insomnia here. And here is my top result, which is sleep initiation and maintenance disorders. If I click on that, it will bring me to the MeSH page, the MeSH record for this term. If I scroll down, I will see the entry terms here. I will continue scrolling. There's a lot of entry terms. And up at the top, you can see several variations of insomnia: insomnia disorder, insomnia disorders, insomnia, insomnia is chronic insomnia, and so forth. This entry term insomnia here is why our search pulled in the MeSH term sleep initiation and maintenance disorders. And it will retrieve all Medline records that are indexed with that term. I will keep this record open and go back to my slides. Okay. Any questions so far? Is there anything I can clarify? Yeah.
Nothing in the search, in the chat box just yet, but maybe people will, let's give it a moment. Maybe they're top. Okay. Somebody said that was great. So we're doing good so far. So
yes.
Thanks, Monica.
Okay. Well, there'll be plenty of time for questions. So I will move on, but if you're in the middle of typing, we will get to you. The next thing I want to talk about is the structure of MeSH and automatic explosion. This slide shows the main branches or categories of MeSH. The four most highly used branches are anatomy, the chemicals and drugs category, the diseases category, and organisms. Notice that there are plus signs after all of these branches. That means that there are sub-branches. Let me go back to my MeSH record for sleep initiation and maintenance disorders. Let's scroll down a bit to reveal the tree structure. So I will go down past the entry terms to the bottom of the page where we see a tree structure. Here I am at the very top of the tree of the all MeSH categories. And when I click on that, it takes me to the very top, looking at all of the main branches of the MeSH tree. In the anatomy category, we see there are sub-branches because of this plus sign here. And if I click on that, we see there's sub-branches of the animal structures, bacterial structures, and here I will stop at body regions, the body regions branch. We see there are additional sub-branches with more plus signs. And here I will click on head. And that brings me to the MeSH record for head. If I scroll down, I see that there are additional sub-branches. We see that face is more narrow or more specific than head, but it's not as specific as cheek or eye or mouth. And this is what we mean by the hierarchy. As we click on each sub-branch, the terms become more specific. Let's click on eye. In the MeSH record for eye, we see, if we scroll down, we see that eye is in two branches of the MeSH hierarchy. It's in the body regions branch and in the sense organs branch. Now, the next thing I'm about to say is important. We get a lot of questions about it. When you run a search in PubMed using a broad term, such as eye, your search will automatically explode to include all the more narrow, more specific terms from all of the branches in your search term. So if you run a search in PubMed with eye, you will get citations indexed with eyebrows, eyelashes, cornea, iris, and if we keep scrolling down, retina. This is called automatic explosion, and it's designed to bring in relevant results. And that is number 5 on your handout. Automatic explosion includes all the more narrow terms in your search. At this point, we've searched the MeSH database, but now let's build a PubMed search from within MeSH using the Search Builder text box at the top of the MeSH record. I am scrolling up to the top of my MeSH record for eye, and on the side here is the PubMed Search Builder. Now, if I can add to Search Builder, and we see the term eye, and in that bracket it says MeSH. It's tagged with MeSH. Remember, because we are searching with a MeSH term, we will only retrieve Medline citations because those are the only citations with MeSH terms, and they are the vast majority of citations in PubMed. Now I will click on Search PubMed underneath the box, and it has brought me into PubMed. In the search box, you can see my term eye and then tagged with MeSH. You can also see that we have more than 400,000 results because this search is incredibly broad. Next, I will click on Advanced below the search box and scroll down to see my history and search details. I will locate the details column and click on the small chevron or right pointing arrow to expand my search details. Now, what is missing in the search details? Let me know in the chat. What are we not seeing here that we just discussed? Let me open up the chat. Right. We do not see any of the more narrow terms below eye that we saw in the MeSH record, like eyebrow, iris, cornea, etc. And that is number 6 on your handout. Will your PubMed search details show the more narrow terms in your search? No. They are included in your search automatically, but you will not see them in your PubMed search details. Let's look at one of the results of this search. Now, I could just go to my back button and go back to that page, or within my search details, right here under the results column, there's a hyperlinked number, and I can click on that, and that will bring me to my results page. Now, to focus my search, I will change how PubMed is sorting these results from most recent to best match. Now, you may recall from the first session of how PubMed works that PubMed search results will be sorted by best match. If you go into PubMed and throw in a search in the search box, it's defaulted to search to best match. When you send a search from MeSH, the MeSH database, to PubMed, the results are sorted by most recent. Now, these are the same results, they just get reshuffled. So if I switch to that, I still have the same number of results. They've just reshuffled, and really I'm doing this to make it easier to get to the example that I wanted to show you. So the 4th citation here is Anatomy and Physiology of the Cornea. And Rebecca has put the PubMed ID into the chat box for the specific result. If you would like to follow me into PubMed, you would just put the PubMed ID in the search box and hit search, and that would bring you to this citation. Okay, so within the citation, I would like to see the MeSH terms that are associated with it. This is just a big long web page, and I can just scroll down, or I can use the page navigation here to click on MeSH terms, which will jump me down the page. Now, notice in these MeSH terms that you do not see I in the list. Why is that? Tell me in the chat. Why do we not see I? So the specific citation, it was indexed with a more this citation was indexed with a more specific term. That's what I'm seeing here in the chat. It was indexed with cornea. Our search for I automatically exploded to search for citations indexed with the more narrow terms below I, and cornea is one of those terms. So, to review, to understand what terms were included in your search results, check both the PubMed search details and consult the MeSH database. In the MeSH database, you will find the more specific terms listed below your search term. And that is number 7 on your handout. Check your PubMed search details and the MeSH database record for each MeSH term that will be included in your PubMed search. Okay, now I would like to go back to the MeSH database. Again, I am in a citation in PubMed. If I continue to scroll down the page, I will get to this gray area with the hyperlink word MeSH. If I click on that, it will bring me to MeSH. And I'm going to leave you here while I go back to my slides. I have a short exercise for you to reinforce your understanding of automatic explosion. What other MeSH terms will be included in your PubMed search if you search using the MeSH term fear? So please start in that MeSH database for this exercise. We are looking for one word, and when you have the answer, let me know in the chat. What other MeSH terms will be included in your PubMed search if we are searching using the MeSH term fear? Yes, Excellent. Panic. All right. Panic is the answer, and that is number 8 on your handout. I have a follow-up question. Where did you look to find your answer? What is the only place that will show you all the terms to be included in your search? Yes, the MeSH database, the MeSH tree in the record. Okay, it's the exploded terms in the MeSH database is where you are looking for that answer. Let me go into MeSH to demonstrate. So I will put in fear. And if I select the first result here, fear, and scroll down the page, here's my MeSH tree. We see emotions, fear, and panic is a more narrow term. Okay, great. Let's go back to our eye example. So one nifty thing here is MeSH keeps track of my recent activity. So I can just click on eye right here, and it will bring me back to the MeSH record for eye. As I mentioned, a question we hear a lot is, can you limit your search to a particular branch of the MeSH tree? And the answer is no. You cannot limit your search to a particular branch. By default, all the more narrow terms from all the branches will be included in your search. However, you can completely turn off automatic explosion for a specific term and then add any additional terms of interest manually. Let me show you where to find the checkbox in MeSH to turn off automatic explosion. I'm in the MeSH record for eye, and if I scroll down, you'll see there is a checkbox next to a phrase, do not include MeSH terms found below this term in the MeSH hierarchy. So I will click in that box, and then I will come over and add this to the search builder, and you'll see my MeSH term I, MeSH, and then it says no EXP. That means no explosion. Now I'm not going to run this search, but I could also add additional terms here to run a search. So this is how you do it. But that said, we like to caution people about using the no explosion feature because you might miss a relevant citation that was indexed with a more specific term. Let me go back to my slides. All right, here's another time for questions. What can I clear up? Is there any questions?
Yeah. So Judy just asked a question about how to get to MeSH, and I don't know if you can go back to
Sure.
the website, but she said, is that link in the gray bar the only way to get there? And there are that's the main way.
Yeah.
And if you would click on your PubMed tab.
Sure.
And scroll just a little bit to the center right there. Judy, if you're looking at the screen, this white section, yeah, Margot's pointing in the Explore.
Mm-hmm.
There's that. I keep it bookmarked in my browser. Historically, there used to be a way to get directly like a drop down of choices, but not from PubMed anymore. So.
Yeah, it used to, similarly to what we see here in MeSH, where there's a huge long list of things you can get to. There used to be something like that.
There's another question here, and we may want to ask Amanda about this a little bit too, but do we ever use the MeSH browser? And I think there are reasons to not use it, but Amanda, do you want to, so this is the MeSH database that we're looking at, and then there's the MeSH browser.
Yeah, the MeSH browser is built by the team who maintains the MeSH vocabulary, and we just take their data at NCBI and create the MeSH database. So it's the same data. The way that you search the databases, it tends to be a little bit different, but it has all the same information, the same view of the tree. It's just the way you interact with it and the way you search it is a little bit different. Also, this PubMed search builder that we are using quite a bit in this class is exclusive to the NCBI MeSH database.
Thank you. And Christina just added something. Also, the drop down from the search page. I don't think there's a drop down in PubMed anymore.
No.
Yeah, but what we're looking at drop down here, we're
Yeah.
in the MeSH database, and
We're
that's
in
an option.
MeSH right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so there's another question. When you search in advanced search and choose MeSH, it attaches the MeSH to all terms, even though they are not MeSH terms? So are you saying starting in PubMed? Let's just search for, is there a particular term? Oh, and you know what, Christina, there might be, hold on, two things. If we go to advanced here, so I'm sorry, go up just a little bit. I want to go to the all fields. If you click on that, maybe that's what she meant. Is there MeSH from here? I think that if you, not date, but all the way, this is alphabetical, and maybe this MeSH term. So Christina, okay, maybe that's what you meant. So this is a way to get to MeSH. Or choose MeSH terms anyway. I don't think you're not going to the MeSH database from there.
No.
Okay, so I'm still trying to parse Judy's question. When you search in advanced search, which is where we are, and choose MeSH, it attaches MeSH to all the terms, even though well, again, I'm not sure which terms you tried.
I can hop in here,
Yeah.
Rebecca, if you'd like.
Yeah.
You can type any term you want to into the search box and click MeSH major topic or MeSH term, MeSH subheading, and it will attempt to search in that field for that term. If it's not a MeSH term, you're not going to get results. You can also search with entry terms, though. I'll make that distinction. So you can put a MeSH term or a MeSH entry term and tag it with the MeSH heading. If you have other search terms that you want tagged with other field tags, you'll have to enter them one at a time, click the add button so that it places your search terms into the query box, and then you can go back and select a different field or leave it empty so that it searches in the all fields. But yes, you can type whatever you want into that search term box, and technically it will add the MeSH term field tag to it. It's not going to give you great results if it's not actually a MeSH term, though.
Okay.
Okay, oh wait, hold on, something just came, somebody said okay. Judy said okay.
And I'll just mention, if you're having trouble with this, feel free to write to the NLM help desk. Me and my colleagues were the ones answering those tickets, so you're welcome to write to us, and we're happy to look into why something is not working the way you expect it to.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. Okay, so far we've defined MeSH and entry terms. We've looked at the hierarchical structure of MeSH and talked about automatic explosion. Let's move on to the 4 types of MeSH terms, which is number 9 on your handout. The first type of a MeSH term is MeSH heading. MeSH headings represent concepts found in biomedical literature. We've looked at head, eye, and fear. Subheadings are used in combination with MeSH headings to focus in on a particular aspect of an article, and that is number 10 on your handout. Subheadings add specificity to a heading. We will explore subheadings in a moment. Publication types describe the type of material being indexed, such as a review article or a comment in a journal. And lastly, we have supplementary concept records. Supplementary concept records are also known as SCRs. Most supplementary concept records describe chemicals and drugs, which are referred to as substances in PubMed. I'll show you where to find the substance information in a PubMed citation in a bit. Okay, I'm going to go back to my MeSH page. I'm going to go to the home page here, and one way to get to the home page in MeSH is just to click on the word MeSH up at the top of the page. Let's start by looking at headings. There are about 30,000 MeSH headings in MeSH. I will enter albuterol for my example and select my first result. And here I am in the albuterol record. Now, notice that there's a list of subheadings here. So the next type of MeSH term is a subheading. Subheadings are used in combination with a MeSH heading to focus in on a particular aspect of a MeSH heading. And there are over 70 MeSH subheadings. So here are the subheadings that can be used with this term to describe articles. So if we are interested in finding citations about adverse effects of albuterol, we could click in the checkbox next to the adverse effects and then add it to the search builder. Let's do that. And I already have seen that I need to clear my search box here. Okay, so I've clicked on adverse effects and I'm going to add to search builder. So here we have albuterol / adverse effects. That / will always indicate that the next term is a subheading. And you can look up the definition of any subheading in MeSH. So if you're able, please go to MeSH in a new window. I have another tab open here. And I am going to look up adverse effects. Adverse effects. And hit search. And you will see that my first result says adverse effects, and in brackets it says subheading. Subheadings are also arranged hierarchically and explode just like the MeSH headings. So you stay here if you're following along with me, and I will go back to my slides. What other subheadings will be included in this search that we just ran? So if you are in the MeSH database with that albuterol / adverse effects, and you have looked up adverse effects in MeSH, what other terms will it run for? Now I'll open up yes, I'm seeing answers coming in. Exactly. Poisoning and toxicity. Okay, so I will go back. So here I am in MeSH, and if I click on this top result and I scroll down, it has its own kind of MeSH tree, pharmacology and therapeutic use, and under pharmacology, it has additional terms, poisoning and toxicity. Okay, so remember that subheadings can also explode, and that is the answer to number 11 on your handout. Do subheadings explode? Yes. To see all the subheadings and their more narrow terms, we will click on the words subheadings category here. Now again, there are over 70 subheadings in MeSH currently. So let's go back to my MeSH record for albuterol. Again, I'm going to use my recent activity here to get back to that page. I'm on the MeSH record for albuterol, and I'm taking a look at the subheadings, and clearly they're not 70 available. The only subheadings that are available for use with this specific term are ones that have been chosen that will describe an article in PubMed. And so these are our options. I will select supply and distribution here. Now, if you check more than one subheading at a time, it will be combined with OR, and your results will include records with any of the selected subheadings. And that is number 12 on your handout. Selecting more than one subheading in the MeSH database record will combine the terms with OR, so that records with any of these subheadings will be retrieved. I will select economics and then add these two. First, I will remove this and add these two to the search builder with the search builder. And so here you see albuterol / economics as MeSH, or albuterol supply and distribution. This is a little Boolean refresher for you. If we ran this search, which I am not going to do, we will get results that are either this or that. Will this increase our results or decrease our results? Let me know in the chat. Yes, it will increase our results. If you check more than one subheading at a time, your choices will be combined with OR, and your results will include records with any of these selected subheadings, or broadens your search. Now I can edit this to and this will narrow my search because I will find citations that include both subheadings. Let me clear this again and uncheck economics because I want to show you a different way to limit your search. Notice below the subheadings is a checkbox next to restrict to MeSH major topic. I'm going to click on that. I still have supply and distribution checked, and I will add that to my search builder. During the indexing process, the major point of an article is identified, and the major designation that you see here in the brackets is applied to the MeSH heading or to a MeSH heading / subheading combination to represent the major topic. When we add this combination to the search builder, we see the heading / subheading combination with the major designation after it. And this is one way to focus a search. And this is my favorite way to focus a search. And for those of you who work in academic settings, this can be a good tool to help students get to the infamous 3 good articles on any given topic. Now I will click on Search PubMed, and I am in PubMed, and my search term is in the search box, and I have 4 results. This is a nice, tidy amount of results. Let's look at the second of these results, implementation and evaluation of a stock albuterol program for students with asthma. And Rebecca has put the PubMed ID in the chat box for this citation. If you are in PubMed, you can plop that into the search box, hit search, and you will come to this citation. I want to take a look at the MeSH terms, and I will scroll down. I will use the page navigation here to jump down the page to the MeSH terms. And we see here albuterol / supply and distribution. We told PubMed that we wanted citations with its subheading combination, and that's what we got. Also notice that there's an asterisk after the MeSH term. The asterisk indicates that the MeSH term albuterol with the subheading supply and distribution was identified as a major topic of this article, and that is number 13 on your handout. The major points of an article are marked with an asterisk. An article can have more than one major designation applied to it, and this one does. We see asthma / drug therapy, bronchodilator agents, supply and distribution, nebulizers and vaporizers, supply and distribution. school health services, organization and administration, and school nursing. Those are all major topics. Okay, let me go back to my slides here. Okay, another chance for questions. Now, are there any questions I can help
one
with?
just came in from Leslie. Could you share more about how mesh terms are determined to be a major topic for an article? And I'm probably going to turn that over to Amanda. That's what.
Yes.
That is actually a question that is for the MeSH team. That we have a team of curators and indexers, as well as the group who create the MeSH vocabulary, and we don't have anyone from that team here today. So I will paste a link into the chat for our help desk, and when you write there, we can make sure it gets routed to the correct person to answer that question.
Thank you. There are no other questions at this
Okay.
moment in the chat box.
Okay. All right, we've talked about headings and subheadings. Now let's look at the third type of MeSH term, publication types. A publication type can describe the format of a publication being indexed, such as a letter, a case report, an editorial, or a review article. It can also describe the research study method, like clinical trial or observational study. And it can describe the source of the funding for the research, such as NIH or CDC. And that is number 14 on your handout. A publication type can describe the format of a publication, the type of research study, or the funding source for the research. So I am going to go back to my MeSH homepage. Actually, I'll come up here and I'm going to click on MeSH here. And I will search for clinical trial. And I will select my first result here, which is clinical trial as a publication type. Now, just like the MeSH headings and subheadings, publication types are arranged hierarchically in the MeSH database. A search for a particular publication type will automatically explode to include the more specific publication types below it in the hierarchy. So I could search on clinical trial, but if what I really wanted were articles about a phase 3 clinical trial, that is the term I should use because that would be the most narrow term. You can click on publication type category to get that bird's eye view of the MeSH branch here. These are all the types of publication types in the MeSH database. But just a note about publication types. Not all of these terms will be available for PubMed searching. Some of them are only available for the other parts of the National Library of Medicine catalog, such as bookplate. Bookplate is not a publication type cited in PubMed, but it can be found elsewhere in the NLM catalog. If you want to know how NLM defines any of these publication types, you can look them up in the database. Okay, we are going to go back to PubMed, and Rebecca has another PubMed ID to share in the chat. I am going to type the number in. It's 319-20054. And now I am at the citation for the effect of bleaching agents in toothpaste on enamel. And notice that there is a label at the top of the citation that says randomized control trial. Not all citations will have a publication type label here, but you can find them at the bottom of the citation record. either by scrolling down the page or using this page navigation to click on publication types. And here it is, randomized controlled trial. Here I can stop for any questions again.
So there was a follow-up question from Leslie. So we couldn't answer how certain things exactly became majored, during the indexing process. But then she asked about the plate. So this one won't have it. If I give you, hold on, urine effects of bleaching. I'm going to give you the implement. Yeah, implementation. This one had. Yes. If go down to the MeSH terms, please.
Okay.
So we have albuterol / well, the asterisk in this case in the second MeSH term entry is after the subheading, and then well, actually they're all in the same place. Sometimes you're going to see the asterisk after the MeSH heading. And the question, even if though it has a subheading, the question was basically, I think, if I'm understanding her question correctly, does placement of the asterisk mean that the MeSH heading is majored and not the subheading, and vice versa? Amanda may or may not be able to weigh on that. Years ago, I was told placement of the asterisk doesn't indicate anything except that it was all majored.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else on this who can talk
Yeah.
has other information.
I don't have more information on this, but I will ask around while we're continuing on with the class and see if we can get you an answer before we end today. And if not, again, write to the help desk and I will answer you there. But I'll keep digging.
Thanks. That was it.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go. I don't know that it matters. Oh, it doesn't really matter. Okay, we're going to take a look at supplementary concept records now, also known as SCRs. SCRs are quite a bit different than all the other types of MeSH terms that we've looked at. So I'm going to get myself back to MeSH by scrolling down to this grade section and where it says MeSH and click here. And I am going to search on Wolframin protein, and Rebecca will put that term in the chat so you can follow along if you'd like. Okay, so I will click on this top result, which is Wolframin protein supplementary concept, and open it up. Now, what is different and what is the same about this record type compared to the other MeSH records that we've looked at? Let me know in the chat. You can let me know what looks similar and what looks different. Yep, I'm seeing some answers here. Exactly. There is no hierarchy, no tree, no subheadings, no major topics checkbox, and no checkbox to turn off the explosion. The similarities are the entry terms. And we also see a definition. One thing that's different is we see this heading mapped to. Let me go back to my slides. Okay. We can look up supplementary concepts in the MeSH database and use them for searching in PubMed. However, supplementary concepts are not part of the MeSH hierarchy, and that is number 15 on your handout. Supplementary concepts are not part of the hierarchy. They reside outside of the tree structure. If you think of the other types of MeSH terms that we've talked about as being in the tree structure, you might think of SCRs as being like a tire swing attached to a specific branch of the hierarchy. There are about 300,000 supplementary concepts in the MeSH database, and new ones can be added daily, Monday through Thursday, to keep up with changes in the literature. SCRs can graduate to a full MeSH term, but you can't tell that by looking at the MeSH record. Again, there's a team at the National Library of Medicine that monitors the SCRs and makes those decisions. Remember, the other three types of MeSH terms, headings, subheadings, and publications, are updated annually. So let me go back to my Wolfram protein page. Supplementary concepts are not part of the MeSH tree, but they are attached or mapped to a specific branch. And here we see that represented by this heading map to membrane proteins. Let's search this term in PubMed. So I will add to the search builder and then click on Search PubMed. So here I'm in PubMed, and you see my search term here in the search box. We have almost 400 results. Once again, I want to reshuffle these to best match so I can show you this second citation, and Rebecca can put that PubMed ID in the chat. If I open this up, this highly accurate protein structure prediction, and if I scroll down, I'm looking in the page navigation for substances. You may recall that I said that most SCRs are chemicals and drugs, which PubMed refers to as substances. The substances section of a PubMed record allows you to quickly see which chemical and drug terms have been applied to a citation. Both MeSH headings and supplementary concepts can be in the substances section, and we see that here with membrane proteins and Wolfram protein here. So if we scroll back up, the MeSH terms are just above it. And we won't see Wolfram protein up here, but we do see the member proteins here because this is a MeSH term, but the Wolfram protein is not. Okay, let me go back to my slides. So those are the four types of MeSH terms: headings, subheadings, publication types, and supplementary concept records. Again, do we have any questions?
One just came in,
Mm-hmm.
kind of going back to more the beginning of the session. Entry terms are automatically searched with MeSH terms using OR, correct? And I'm going to say no, but you could keep going.
Right, right. So the or comes, let me go back here. The or comes when we, so where am I? I'm in MeSH. And let me just go back to one of my other search terms. The or comes when we click two different subheadings here and add that to the search builder. That's when you see the or. That's when that automatically happens. And you can edit that if you would like to.
And I guess I will add that entry terms are not, the only entry term that would be searched is the one that you use. So if you used, well, I think insomnia was an entry term. If we were in PubMed, used the entry term insomnia, just that entry term, well, the entry term, it will map to MeSH, so those two terms will be searched, plus all the other things that automatic term mapping does. But the other subheadings, the other entry terms are not brought into your search automatically, with or without or. So,
and let me I'll go up to the top of my PubMed page. So if we did that insomnia again, and we clicked on advanced and come down and look in the details, opening this up, and we'll see what was searched here. So we're seeing insomnia and different variations in all fields. And the MeSH term right here is sleep initiation and maintenance disorders. So this is where you're seeing that or, if that, I don't know where the or came from in the question, but.
Yeah, which or?
Yeah.
When or. So yeah, but again, all the entry terms for sleep initiation are not included in this search, just whatever entry term you use.
Okay.
So there is another question. So Leslie was trying to clarify her question about how, let's see, regarding assigning major to a MeSH heading. My original question was about how major is decided. Yeah, there's an algorithm for that. And so we'll follow up with that, Leslie. And so the questions that we do follow up, I'll include them in the follow-up email that we send to everybody who registers, and that email will have the recording. We'll include the answers to these questions that we finally get the answers to. So thank you. That's all that's in there.
Okay. Okay. All right. We're going to pull this all together. And so I will just go back here and I'm in MeSH and I will search on heart attack, which is brings us back to our first example where I typed in MeSH and it automatically brought me to myocardial infarction. So the term mapped to myocardial infarction. So here's where we see the term and we see a definition of the term. Not every term has a definition, but these are the definitions that are used by the National Library of Medicine. The next component you see is the year introduced, 1979. And this indicates that you will get citations going back to at least 1979 in PubMed. Now, not all MeSH terms have a date of year introduced. If a term does not have a date associated with it, it indicates that the term has been around since the origins of MeSH, like 1946, obviously a paper-based version, but that term can be used to search all Medline citations if there is no year introduced. Now we also see this date introduced, and this date is not relevant to searching. We really don't need to even think about that date. The year introduced is what's important to our searching. Now, MeSH terms are added to the system throughout the year, but only published once a year during the end of the year processing that happens in December. So a term may be added to MeSH in, say, March 1991, but won't go into effect until January 1992 during the year-end processing. Now, sometimes we see two dates. So if I change my search term here from heart attack to heart assist devices, I will see that there are two dates here under year introduced. So heart assist devices is an example of a MeSH term with two dates. This means that you can use heart assist devices to retrieve citations indexed as far back as 1986. But the MeSH term for this concept did not become heart assist devices until 1990. Prior to 1990, the concept of heart assist devices was represented by other MeSH terms. Then, in 1990, the term heart assist devices was added to the MeSH vocabulary, and at that point, the National Library of Medicine did a find and replace for all the citations previously indexed with these other terms and applied heart assist devices to them. So we know we can search heart assist devices back through 1986, But what if you wanted a historical search for earlier publications? To be comprehensive in your searching, you would want to consider the previous indexing terms when they are included in the MeSH record. And here in this record, there are 3. I will scroll down here. Here are my entry terms. If I keep going below that, I see previous indexing. Assisted circulation, starting in 1967, heart, artificial, 1967, pacemaker, artificial, 1966. If you do not see any previous indexing indicated and you want to do that more historical kind of searching, you could just go up higher in the MeSH tree and search on those terms there. Let me go back to my heart attack example by using my recent activity. And I'm going to clear this box. Okay, so we have the definition, the year introduced, and here are my subheadings. Under my subheadings, the restrict to MeSH major topic and do not include MeSH terms found below this term in the MeSH hierarchy. And then we have our our entry terms, And below we have a C also. And here we have heart rupture post-infarction. This is a term you may want to consider exploring as it is related to this concept in an important way. So below your entry terms, if there is a C also, you might want to pay attention to what that term is. And then finally, we have the hierarchy for this particular term, which lets you know whether more narrow terms will be included automatically in your search. Okay, well, I think that's what I've got. So are there any other questions, Rebecca?
Nothing new came in, but I'm putting a link into chat right now. A video that we've made in the past. What do the dates in MeSH mean? And it runs over what Margot just explained. The only reason we haven't included it on our handout is I just want to sort of a disclaimer. We made it a long time ago. All the information is correct, but the PubMed interface is old and the MeSH interface is old. It's previous interfaces. So don't be thrown off by the way it looks. The content is correct, and someday we may remake that. So you might want to grab that link. And it's just like, I think it's a 2-minute video. So it's not a commitment. So
yes. And it is a confusing bit of the record.
Yeah. I will also put into chat a link to the handout with all the answers in case you missed any of that. And also, no more questions are coming in.
Okay.
I am putting in the evaluation link as well.
We do have some exercises if you...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's all right.
I took that away.
Should I?
Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
All right. Should I go to 2 or 3?
Whatever the next one is, either.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So here. Okay, 2. Couple of exercises just to get you all set with this. True or false, with the subheading therapy, the subheading therapy will include results indexed with surgery. So if you want to go to the MeSH database and look up therapy as a subheading, tell me, is that true or false? Okay. Oh, sorry. Here we go. True. So when you check the subheading record in MeSH, there are more narrow subheadings, and in this case, there are many. And surgery is one of them. Okay, so I have one more for you. Exercise 3. Look up hand washing in MeSH, and you will see that it maps to hand disinfection. So how far back can you search with this term? So if you do hand washing in MeSH, it will map to hand disinfection and let me know what year you can search to. Okay, so 1982. The date in the parentheses indicates that the concept of disinfecting hands has been in the MeSH vocabulary since 1982. However, the current MeSH heading that represents this concept was introduced in 2013.